Hello, my name is Gary Smith. I'm the Chief Executive of the Gary Smith Partnership. One of the questions that we're most commonly asked when we run our webinars on the effective use of Salesforce dashboards is, how do we create this component here? It's the table in the top right hand corner, and it lists the top 10 opportunities in terms of the number of close date changes. So in other words, the number of times that the close date has been changed on each of these opportunities. You can see that in the middle column. It also shows for each opportunity the created date of that opportunity. So for example, the top one here, we can see that it was created in June 2013, that's about 9 months ago, and the close date has been changed 13 times. So as such, it's a very good summary table for identifying those opportunities that we might want to investigate to see whether they really are legitimate deals in the pipeline and are indeed one day actually going to close, and that they're not artificially inflating the pipeline. So how do we do that? Well, the table itself is a standard dashboard table. It's pulling from an underlying report. So here's the report. It's a matrix report. It summarizes the individual opportunities by the opportunity owner and also by the created date of the opportunity. And the report itself is pulling from, the numbers in it are pulling from a field on the opportunity. So there's the one that we looked at a moment ago in terms of the top of the table. It's been closed, the close date has been changed 13 times. Let's just have a look at that opportunity. So there's the field that we're interested in, number of close date changes, and you can see the close date has been changed 13 times. So how do we create that field that then drives the report? So this is how you create that field. The first thing you do is you create a field. It's a number field. Call it something like number of close date changes. There's the field name. It's a number field. The key thing about this field is this bit here. Give it a default value of 0. So whenever a new opportunity is created, give it a default value of 0. So that field will have 0 in it. So the first thing you do is you create the field. The second thing you do is you create a workflow rule. So you need to be using Enterprise Edition or Unlimited or Professional Edition with the workflow enabled. Here's our workflow rule, number of close date changes. Let's have a look at that. So it counts the number of times the close date has been changed. The evaluation criteria are created and every time it's edited. And the rule criteria are not when the criteria are met. We want when the formula evaluates to true. And the formula is using the isChanged function. So insert the isChanged function, and then between the brackets we want the close date. So the formula evaluates to true whenever the close date is changed. So that's the workflow rule. What does the workflow rule do? Well, the workflow rule fires a field update. So it's this bit here. Let's have a look at that. So here's our field update. We're using a formula to set the new value. So we've selected the formula. What is the formula? Well, the formula is the field, the close date changes. That's the field that we created in the first step, plus 1. So if you remember, we set the default value to 0. The workflow rule fires the field update. What does the field update do? Well, it adds 1 to that number. So the first time that the close date changes, it will add 1 to that number. So let's just go ahead and test that. So there's our opportunity. Here's our close date. Just change the close date, save it, and now our number field has gone up to 14. So that's the field that we're using to drive our report. Now there is one final trick, which is here. If you remember on the dashboard table, we're listing the number of close date changes and the created date. So by default, when you create a dashboard table, it will only pull in one metric, one number. So how did we get the created date on there as well? And actually the technique is on the report. Let's go down to the bottom of the report and add a graph to the report. So whenever you need to summarize columns on a dashboard table, the trick is to add a graph and group the graph in terms of the columns that you need to show on the dashboard table. So the sum of close date changes, that's what we want. We want to group it by the created date. And we've created it as a stacked bar chart here. So the type of graph isn't particularly important. It's the grouping that drives what you can do on the dashboard table. So there's the table that we've created, and when we created the table, we edited the dashboard component and selected the fields that we want to summarize on the table. You see here we're summarizing it and sorting it by descending order for the sum of the close date changes. That's this column here. That's how you do it. There's also on our website a blog post that tells you exactly how to do the same thing. So go to GarySmithPartnership.com, click on the blog, and you'll find there's a whole stack of blog posts there on different subjects. So hope that's useful. Thank you very much indeed.